I'm Martine Rothblatt. I'm a person who likes to take dreams and turn them into realities. I started in the 1980s by launching PanAmSat, the first international television satellite. In the 1990s, I launched Sirius Satellite Radio to bring Howard Stern and other uncensored music direct to people's cars throughout the country. Around the year 2000, I began United Therapeutics, a biotechnology company based on finding medicines that were personalized to people's unique illnesses. And today I'm executive producer of the Singularity is Near film as part of my effort to promote global awareness and appreciation of the necessity and practicality of greatly prolonging human life.
If you could share your thoughts on what will be feasible as we go forward 5, 10, 20 years in biotechnology.
We're extending everyone's lifespans with regenerative medicine, with personalized medicine. Now that we have the DNA decoded, we are able to reprogram the DNA molecule that governs every aspect of our body, our health, and our illness to give us only health. And people have an unlimited amount of desire and willpower to extend their life. This desire and willpower will be channeled into economic forces to propel biotechnology until we achieve, well before the end of this century, the death of death.
Now, some people say we can overcome certain diseases, but this just sort of a basic maximum lifespan. So what's your view of our ability to engineer around whatever those limits might be?
Ray, I think we all have to be very skeptical about people who say that there are limits to what people can do. Human beings are the species that transcend their limits. And it was just a few decades ago that people said that humans would never break the sound barrier, that humans would not break into outer space. And it's the same thing with technological immortality. It's just a concept that thousands of teams of people throughout the world are working on. And I'm quite confident that we'll be able to transcend the barrier of disease and old age before the end of this century.
Now, we have this outdated software that runs inside our bodies. It evolved thousands of years ago. Things were a little bit different then. The fat insulin receptor gene says, hold on to every calorie because you don't know where the next calorie is coming from. That was a good idea 1,000 years ago. RNA interference just emerged a few years ago. We can turn genes off, and there are 1,000 medications in the pipeline using that. Gene therapy, where we add new genes, has been around for a long time. So your company has been pioneering a new approach to gene therapy. Could you talk about that?
Sure. The United Therapeutics approach to gene therapy is to take advantage of the fact that a replacement gene automatically finds its right spot within the 3 billion base pairs that make up our DNA. It's a magical property of the DNA, and it's almost as if nature is inviting us to help fix its bugs in its code. So we take some circulating progenitor stem cells from an individual out of their bloodstream via just extracting their blood, and we spin it down until we have just the endothelial progenitor stem cells. We transfect those stem cells with a corrected gene, re-inject them back into the person's body via simple injection, and those stem cells find their ways to the parts of the body where they normally reside and produce the protein products directed by the genes that we've inserted into them.
So what do you see as some of the most promising biotechnology opportunities, things that are really on the cusp that could overcome these major sources of aging and disease?
I think the most important technologies in the biomedical field are those that relate to regenerative medicine, because ultimately it's important for us to be able to replace body parts in a way that's recognized by our immune system as being self. So the work that's going on in immunology, as well as the work that's going on in stem cell technology, are the twin pillars that will support an indefinite lifespan for human beings.
Some people have an issue on the desirability of radically extending human life expectancy, because if you talked about people living to 80 back in 1800 when people lived until their 30s, that might have been controversial. People just blithely say, oh, I don't want to live forever. I don't want to live past 100 years old. What are your views on this very powerful meme?
I think it all comes down to human choice, Ray, in terms of how we respond to the question of whether or not death is a good thing. In a modern rational world, we try to respect human choice, and in some progressive states such as Oregon and Holland, if an individual wishes to end their life, they're permitted to end their life. But among everybody else who does not want to end their life, they should have the right to continue their life indefinitely. And my view is that we should respect personal autonomy and personal liberty and use technology to allow us to extend our life. For example, there are many things which are not natural that we are grateful for. Wearing glasses is not natural, but if we said that we would only take our bodies the way they were naturally born, we would be condemning millions of people to have a blurry view of the world, and I think we'd all agree that would be horrible. So thank goodness for glasses, thank goodness for artificial hearts, thank goodness for artificial knees, and thank goodness for technological immortality.
But if we look at some of the other objections at other levels, people say it'll be boring. And then the other major issue is, well, we don't, as a society, we don't have enough resources.
It makes no sense to say that it's boring to live forever. Every day there are 3,000 books published. There are dozens of movies produced each day. We don't even have enough time with 2 or 3 lifetimes to read all the great books and watch all the great films that have been done. That's not to mention hiking in Bordeaux, sampling wine at the great vineyards. Life is beautiful and bountiful, and boredom is something that one should see their psychiatrist about.
Boredom is a form of anxiety, actually, because if you are satisfied with the world, you don't feel bored. I also make the point that probably we would get bored if we had radical life extension without radical life expansion. So it's a mistake to take one set of trends and apply it to today's world as if nothing else is going to change. But these same technologies that are going to extend life are also going to enhance it. They already are. We have all of the world's knowledge at our fingertips.
I think people can be divided into 2 categories. People who cannot accomplish everything they want to do in a given day, and people who can. And the people who cannot accomplish everything they want to do in a given day, by definition, would be thrilled with immortality. And the people that can finish everything they want to do each day within 4 hours need to see a therapist or a social counselor to get a life.
Now, what about the resource issue?
The question of resources for a growing human population has been provided by the cosmos. It was shown by Jerry O'Neill back in the 1970s that the resources just from the moon and the asteroid belt are enough to build artificial space habitats capable of accommodating 500 times the current world's population. So, fly over the United States, most of it is empty. We capture just a 0.1% of the solar radiation falling on the Earth's surface would power our entire society. The Earth is like a little tiny closet in a gigantic mansion. And to say that there's not enough world in the galaxy for a growing population is completely absurd.
There's a lot of growth here on Earth.
There's literally an infinite amount of growth for biomass.
One controversy that comes up is that people say, well, it's fine to fix problems. Bill McKibben said this. Disease, disabilities, it's fine to overcome these kinds of limitations, but we shouldn't go beyond normal human capabilities. Not that that's a sharply defined limit, but what's your view about that particular controversy?
We need to always go beyond normal human capabilities because that's our nature as human beings. Human beings are the species that transcend their limitations. It's wonderful that we do because thanks to those transcendence of our limitations, we now have beautiful music, amazing art, we're able to travel the globe, we're able to relieve pain and suffering for millions of people. One more limitation is the unfortunate loss of all of an individual's knowledge and goodness with the degradation of their body. If there was no other way to avoid it, we'd have to accept it. And that's what all of religion has been about for the past several millennium, is teaching us to accept that. Thanks to science and technology, we're now at the cusp of transcending that limitation. And it's nothing to be fearful for. It's something we should grab for with both arms and welcome the transcendence of this last human limitation, the limitation of illness, disability, and death.
Now, one argument I hear is people say death's a good thing because it frees up opportunities for the younger generation to provide leadership and creativity. And Bill McKibben said, if Mozart was still alive today, he'd be in charge of the conservatories and would keep out new ideas in music.
One of the most important reasons for us to transcend death is because of the beauty that we can share with grandchildren, great grandchildren, and further down the line. There is a love between grandparents and grandchildren that cannot be matched, and unfortunately, we begin to lose this with great grandchildren and great grandchildren because we don't live long enough. There are so many things that we can teach those children that they can teach us. Intergenerational love is one of the most beautiful forms of love, and by transcending death, we will empower an explosion of intergenerational love. I like trying to pursue the three bridges of radical life extension, which are, first of all, to use supplementation to try to reprogram aspects of my body which are degrading, and then secondly, to do all that I can to pave the way forward for biotechnology and nanotechnology to extend our lives yet further, and then finally to pursue full mind uploading to ensure that we have freedom from whatever the happenstance may occur to a single body. I think it's really important to get to the point of one mind, multiple bodies as rapidly as possible. With regard to supplementation, I'm a follower of the Fantastic Voyage regimens of nutritional supplementation. With regard to biotechnology and nanotechnology, I started a biotechnology company, United Therapeutics, to save the life of my youngest daughter, and it's come out to be true, and her life and thousands of other people's lives have been saved through that biotechnology, so it's a proof positive of the second bridge to technological immortality. With regard to nanotechnology, our company sponsors a conference every year on medical and telemedical, nanomedical and telemedical technology. And the goal of this conference is for it to become a networking opportunity to expedite the point in time when our bodies can be infused with medical nanobots, which can communicate with each other and with computers outside the body wirelessly to attack any medical problems. And then finally, I've established a nonprofit foundation, the Terasem Foundation, whose goal is mind loading or uploading and downloading our consciousness from our flesh mind to computer substrate where it can be safe and replicated and deployed ultimately throughout the cosmos.
Let me ask you a few questions about mind uploading. I sometimes give this example of someone to come to me and say, "Good news, Ray, we've scanned your mind while you were sleeping and we've reinstantiated in this computer in here. We don't need your old body and brain anymore." I may disagree with that perspective because I didn't even know anything was happening and I still feel like I'm the same person. And that new Ray would seem to me to be a different person. Is that the same person?
I think that the ray that is uploaded is yourself. It's your person initially because it's a creation of your mind, and under intellectual property and copyright law, it belongs to you. It is you. There will come a time, however, when that new ray may apply for its individual personhood.
Now, there's the legal level, and the legal level tries to follow our ideas about philosophy. But let's talk about, from a philosophical point of view, of consciousness. If you copy as precisely as you need to and create a new ray that's identical, but I'm still here, is that a different consciousness?
If you create yes, I think it is a different consciousness because it knows from the moment it was created that it was not the original. It knows full well that it was a copy. Even if it didn't know it immediately, it would become aware of it within a matter of minutes. And so it is a separate consciousness.
So it's a different consciousness, and so if you were to come and then extinguish me, that could be murder, even though you have this perfect copy.
It would be murder because because you're a separate being.
Right. But now follow another line. Suppose I gradually change myself to a machine. I gradually replace this little set of neurons with a machine and this little set of neurons bit by bit, and then a week later I seem like the same person, and there's been no old Ray and new Ray. There's been a complete continuity. But you could make the case that that Ray that ends up at the end of that process is equivalent to this machine copy, and that somewhere you've destroyed the old Ray along the way.
I don't think that. I think once you replace a flesh mind bit by bit with machines and create a new consciousness of machines, there is a continuity of personhood, and there is only one being that's existed throughout that process. If you upload your mind outside your body and you create a second consciousness somewhere else, you've now created two beings, and it's a completely different situation. What I think will ultimately courts will focus on is whether or not there is a singularity of entity or a duality of or a multiplicity.
Well, to put the courts aside, just to think about this in terms of the philosophical issue of consciousness, that latter example of the gradual replacement ends up with a ray that's equivalent to the copy in the first example. And in the first example, we said, no, that wasn't the same person. It was a different person. And now you're saying, well, if we do it gradually, it's not a different person. It's the same person.
I believe it's.
But it's really the same process.
I believe it is not the same process and not the same end result to gradually replace a mind with computers or to upload a mind. And the reason why is because you have to focus on the process. All we know, in fact, all we are, is the result of process. When you gradually replace a flesh mind with machines, there is the mind is constantly aware that it is gradually being replaced, and it's transitioning, much in the same way as I myself gradually transitioned from male to female, and I realized that even though now I'm female, I realized throughout the process I was transitioning from male to female. If you, on the other hand, upload your mind and you create a copy of Ray, that copy will be aware that it is a copy of the original. It is not the same thing as the original, and hence you've now created two separate entities, each of which have their own desires and ambitions.
We also transitioned from Ray in September to Ray in October, which actually involves a lot of replacement of cells and parts of neurons. And over a 6-month period, we're actually completely different stuff. So
I often am amused when people say that it's necessary to copy, every single neuron to make a copy of a person. I'm even more amused when people say you need to copy the microtubules to have a copy of the person, because it's been shown for over 100 years that people forget 90% of what they see within 24 hours and 99% within 48 hours. And what we retain is a pattern of reactivity. And that's what's special and unique about us. And it makes us no less special. The fact that there are 1 billion, 100 billion stars in the galaxy makes our sun no less special. And the fact that that we are just a pattern, a program, makes us no less special. It's not quantity that matters, it's quality. The question of whether or not we are machines or not, to me, is a kind of artificial question. I mean, there are flesh machines and there are non-flesh machines. Anything that consists of moving parts and organized processes is some kind of a machine. I remember a great line from the film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, where Sidney Poitier is arguing with his father over his desire to be in an interracial marriage. And his father says, "This is horrible. This would be illegal in half the states in the United States." This was in the 1960s. And Sidney Poitier gets very angry with his father and says, "Dad, I love you, but the problem with you is you see yourself as a colored person. I see myself as a person." I believe in the next decade or two, this same argument is going to be repeated many times, that people say, the problem with you is you see yourself as a flesh person. I see myself as a person.
what kind of strategy can we have to protect ourselves from AI that's more intelligent than we are, that has our destruction at heart? I mean, how do we deal with that? Because it doesn't seem to be a purely technical strategy to protect us.
We can protect ourselves against malevolent AI by constantly developing benevolent AI that looks out for our best interests. And in the long run, that's the way that human society has always gone, is to find a higher level of containment. So the benevolent AI would ultimately contain the harmful AI. Ray, also we have to look at this entire situation in terms of the open systems environment. We're not just dealing with a planet Earth that's going to forever be safe from harm, and therefore we don't need any AI. The Earth exists in a dangerous environment. We know that every tens of millions of years, 90% of the species on the planet have been wiped out by cataclysmic events coming from outside the Earth, such as asteroidal impacts and cometary impacts. We need the power and the strength of AI to ultimately survive as a species, survive our civilization off the planet, and be safe from the astronomical events that could wipe out the Earth.
There are different ideas about how to get to so-called strong AI. We have narrow AI, but human-level AI and beyond. Some people talk about creating a baby that would have the capacity to learn and then letting it loose in a virtual world like Second Life or out on the internet. Some people talk about capturing common sense, that's the essence of human intelligence. Some people say pattern recognition is the heart of human intelligence, and we should just capture that and everything else will fall into place.
The best roadmap for understanding how to create a human mind is to replicate the human mind. And ultimately, with an interesting artificial intelligence, is one that values being human. And the way to create somebody that values being human is to copy somebody that is human.
I've talked about looking inside the human brain and reverse engineering it. What's your view of that project?
The ways to copy somebody who is human can be done either internally via injecting billions of nanobots smaller than a human cell, just like we routinely inject billions of particles into our body for pharmaceutical treatments. Have the nanobots take up residency at the end of neurons and wirelessly transmit in real time the thought processes of an individual offline. The first steps of this type of approach are being done today when people have various devices implanted inside their brain to control epilepsy or seizures and transmit information outside their brain. Chimpanzees, other kind of monkeys are already showing an ability to transmit their thoughts in real time outside the brain. There's also a complementary ex vivo approach, or outside the mind approach, where we can use the increasing resolution of scanning type of devices, such as MRI, to measure the thoughts of a person in real time and then look for patterns that appear during those thought processes and organize them into coherent programs. The rate of advance in the resolution of MRI and other brain scanning devices is exponential, and we can be quite assured that by the year 2020, we'll be able to resolve simultaneously millions of neural synapse connections going on in real time.
One theme of the movie and in my writings in general is the nature of exponential growth and acceleration of an evolutionary process in general and specifically of technology. So if you could, from your own experience, comment on that exponential process.
I've personally experienced the exponential growth of information technology in the field of satellite communications. And when I began in satellite communications in the early 1980s, it took a satellite dish the size of a garage to receive a signal from a satellite. Only 15 years later, we were able to receive a signal from a satellite with a flat plate antenna that fit in the palm of your hand. And that flat plate antenna became the XM satellite radio antenna. So just in 15 years, we went from something that took a garage to come down to the palm of your hand. The next step is to shrink those satellite dishes until they become nanobot size, nanometer size, and can float within our bodies and within our bloodstreams and transmit our experiences from our nerves directly to the outside world. The full immersion of real reality with virtual reality is the natural endpoint of wireless communications.
If you could give us some reflections on what things will be like when all of these different trends come to a more mature point. I mean, we have this exponential growth in being able to reprogram our biology. We have exponential growth in the shrinking of technology, which will lead to nanotechnology. We have acceleration in the progression of artificial intelligence to become smarter and to incorporate all of human knowledge. Human knowledge is growing exponentially. What is this all leading to 20, 30, 40 years from now?
The exponential growth of technology is leading to self-actualization for all human beings. And by self-actualization, I mean the satisfaction of two primary needs. First, that every human being wants to be safe and secure in their health and in their body. And secondly, they want the freedom to do that which feels good to them, whether it's to run, listen to music, invent, make love, be happy. The benefit of exponential technology is it will create such an explosion of wealth and capabilities that all people everywhere in the world will be safe and secure in their body and will have an unlimited ability to make the most of their life. At minimum, these life's ambitions include taking care of their needs for safety and security, and at maximum, they amount to allowing us to realize our wildest dreams, our hopes, our desires for love, for beauty, for inventiveness, for taking care of the people that we love and care about. Ultimately, technology and love are like the yin-yang symbol. It's technology which allows ultimate love. When people say we should recuse ourselves from technology, we should stop developing life-extending technology, what these people are really saying is that we should shrink love, we should foreshorten it, we should chop it off at the legs. What I say is love infinite, and we achieve love infinite through technology.
If I could ask you to comment on what I call the sixth epoch, which is where we basically saturate the ability to support these intelligent processes here on Earth and move out into the rest of the universe.
The sixth epoch will bring us the ability to to take our intelligence here from the Earth and spread it throughout the cosmos. And the way we'll be able to do this is by taking advantage of technologies such as carbon nanotubes, which can pack an enormous amount of intelligence in a very, very small amount of mass. This will allow the mass to be disseminated throughout the universe much more quickly than if we were launching big starships and huge Saturn V rockets. The nanobot vesicles that we will spread throughout the universe will themselves be capable of self-replication, so they'll find carbon on other planets and asteroidal bodies, self-replicate themselves, and with a span of just a few thousand years at most, be able to cover the entire known universe, and possibly even find wormholes and other ways that can get us from one point to the other faster than the speed of light. With the spreading of nanobots and nanotechnology throughout the universe, we'll be able to then connect everything together through wireless communications using techniques as far more advanced of the modulation techniques we use today as our wireless communications is more advanced than the smoke signals of 200 years ago. Is the singularity near? It must be, because all of the technology around us is exponentiating so quickly. Our worlds are being transformed every 10 years with really exciting devices, really great cures, really amazing new virtual worlds for us to visit. I believe the singularity is so near that within the lifetime of everybody in this film theater, they will experience the singularity both as an individual consciousness and as part of a collective consciousness of all humankind.